You know, when you picture Mysuru, it's all grandeur, isn't it? These amazing palaces, you can almost smell the sandalwood.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
absolutely stunning. Postcard perfect, really.
But then imagine, like, right underneath that surface, there's this land deal cooking, and it's so twisted. Honestly, it sounds like it could be a movie plot.
Yeah, it's often those really idyllic settings where you find these incredibly complex, sometimes, well, controversial things happening, especially with land and government.
Exactly, and that's what we're diving into today. You sent over some really fascinating material on this whole MUDA scam, as people are calling it. MUDA being the Mysuru Urban Development Authority for anyone listening. And look, this isn't just, boring paperwork. It's got everything: personalities, alleged forgeries, real drama.
It definitely caught my eye. It really shows that friction. When a city grows fast and the systems, well, they struggle to keep up, especially when big money's involved.
Right. And you, listening, the stuff you shared, it totally explains why this story grabbed you. So we're going to try and cut through the noise here, figure out what's actually going on.
Okay.
So the heart of it seems to be about these 14 plots of land, prime plots, given to BM Parvathy. Now, she's the wife of Karnataka's Chief Minister, Siddaramaiah.
And this is under MUDA's 50.50 scheme, right?
Yeah, exactly, the 50.50 scheme.
Which basically is meant to be a way to compensate people fairly if their land's needed for, city development. Give up land, get back some developed land. Simple idea.
Supposed to be fair, yeah. A win-win in
No
theory. But here's where it gets tricky. The original land involved, right, about 3.16 acres in a place called Kisar Village. Parvathy owned it.
Okay.
But how she got it, and the fact that MUDA apparently already wanted it for their Devonuru layout project, well, it raises questions. And the big allegation is that MUDA just started using the land without, formally acquiring it first.
Whoa, okay. That definitely throws up a red flag. Normally, there's a whole legal process, right? Notifications, assessments, compensation. You can't just use someone's land.
Exactly. So that's the big question. Were those 14 plots in Vijayanagar, which are very nice plots, by the way,
Right.
were they fair compensation for land that was, properly taken, or was something else happening? Forged documents, influence.
And you've got two different investigations saying different things.
Totally different. The Enforcement Directorate, the ED, they're looking at money laundering. But on the Karnataka Lokayukta, the anti-corruption folks, they closed the case, said there was nothing there.
It's a real head-scratcher.
Isn't it? And trying to figure out why they reach such different conclusions is key. The ED's focused on the money trail, the financial side.
Yeah, Prevention of Money Laundering Act. That's their angle.
Whereas the Lokayukta looks more broadly at corruption, misconduct by officials.
Right, administrative stuff. So their findings just highlight how complicated this whole thing really is.
So let's go back to that original land. Kisar Village, 3.16 acres.
Okay.
Apparently a guy named Mallikarjuna Swamy bought it way back in 2004. Then 2010, he gifts it to his sister-in-law.
Who is BM Parvathy.
BM Parvathy, nice gift. But, like we said, MUDA already had plans for it, Devonuru layout, and the claim is MUDA just went ahead and started using it. No formal acquisition. It's like borrowing your neighbor's car without asking, but, on a much bigger scale.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And that's critical because the whole point of the formal process is to protect the landowner. Make sure they know what's happening, get a fair value, get compensated properly.
If that was skipped.
Yeah.
Big questions about what MUDA was doing.
Definitely.
Okay, so fast forward to 2014, Parvathy applies for compensatory sites.
Right, because her land was being used.
Supposedly, and by 2021, she gets these 14 plots. But not in Devonuru, where the original land was. No, she gets them in Vijayanagar, 3rd and 4th stages.
Which is a much more developed, much more desirable area, I take it.
Oh, absolutely. Prime location. Think, trading farmland way out for a spot right downtown. The value difference is potentially huge.
And see, that's a big part of the controversy. Compensation usually means something roughly equivalent, getting plots in a much fancier area that looks less like compensation and more like, well, something else.
Exactly. And this is where the ED really comes in strong. They're not seeing a simple land swap.
No.
They're talking forgery. They're talking influence peddling. They point fingers at Siddaramaiah's former PA, SG Dinesh Kumar, also known as CT Kumar.
Okay, what's the allegation against him?
The ED says he forged Parvathy's signature on the application forms for the site Kathas. Those are like the official ownership papers.
Wow, forgery. That's serious. If that's true, it suggests a deliberate attempt to cheat the system, right? mislead MUDA.
That's what the ED is alleging. And they say they have statements backing this up from the MUDA commissioner at the time, DB Nitesh, and a caseworker, N. Ravi. Apparently, these statements support Kumar's involvement. Nitesh even supposedly admitted he treated Parvathy's file as a special case.
Special. That word always rings alarm bells, doesn't it? Suggests favoritism.
Totally. And get this, there was another PA, Prashant Raju, working for a later commissioner. The ED claims he was giving Kumar daily updates on how the application was going.
Daily updates. That doesn't sound like standard procedure. Sounds like someone pulling strings.
It paints that picture, yeah. But then you look at the Lokayukta's report, completely different take.
Right. What did they find?
They concluded Parvathy knew Kumar was signing for her. She consented. Kumar admitted meeting Nitesh, but said Parvathy asked him to, just to check on the status.
So no forgery in their view.
No forgery, and crucially, the Lokayukta said they found zero evidence that MUD officials felt any pressure from Kumar. No undue influence.
So one side says forgery and pressure, the other says consent and just checking in. It really shows the different standards of proof, maybe, or different interpretations.
It must be. But, okay, even setting aside the forgery and pressure questions, there seem to be clear rule violations.
Like what?
The law, the Karnataka Urban Development Authorities Act from 2009, it says compensatory sites should ideally be in the same layout. So Devanuru in this case.
But she got them in Vijayanagar.
Right. Different area. Much nicer area. And the law also says allotments should generally be by lottery for fairness.
And these weren't lottery.
Nope. Reportedly handpicked by Commissioner Nitesh.
Okay, so deviating from the rules on location and allocation method, that's significant.
It is. The Lokayukta actually acknowledged this violation happened, but they maybe saw it as, I don't know, bad administration.
Whereas the ED likely sees it as proof of favoritism.
Yeah.
Bending the rules for the CM's wife.
Especially when you hear there were sites available in Devanuru. It wasn't like they had no choice.
Oh, really? How many?
Figures I saw mentioned 369 vacant sites still in Devanuru back in 2021, and over 2,500 in Vijayanagar.
So the argument we had to give Vijayanagar sites doesn't really fly if there were hundreds available in the original layout.
It doesn't seem like it. It just adds to the questions about why Vijayanagar.
What else might have been going on there?
Well, that leads to the ED's really big claims. They think this Parvathy case is just like the tip of the iceberg.
Oh.
They're talking about potentially over 1,095 other sites allocated illegally by MUDA, worth something like 700 crore rupees.
Wow. 700 crore. How?
Through what they call Banami deals, where the real owner hides behind someone else and involving realtors. They're painting a picture of systemic corruption.
So Parvathy's case might just be one example of a much wider problem within MUDA itself.
That seems to be the ED's angle, that this wasn't just a one-off favor, but part of a pattern.
Now, did the Lokayukta look into these wider issues?
They did. And interestingly, they kind of agreed there were big problems. They acknowledged those 1,095 potentially illegal sites. They noted this alleged nexus between realtors and MUDA officials.
Yeah.
There were even mentions of WhatsApp chats apparently discussing bribes, involving a former MUDA chairman, GT Dinesh Kumar, and a realtor named Jayaramu.
So evidence of potential bribery, too.
Reported evidence, yeah. And other weird stuff, like one guy, M. Ravi Kumar, apparently getting 17 sites even though he hadn't lost any land.
17. How does that happen?
Good question. The Lokayukta also pointed out that maybe having staff stay at MUDA for really long times created this sort of closed shop, maybe less oversight.
So the Lokayukta saw the systemic problems but didn't connect Parvathy's case to criminal wrongdoing specifically.
Seems that way. They saw the mess at MUDA, but concluded in her specific instance, not enough for criminal charges against her or Siddaramaiah, but they definitely flagged the bigger issues.
Which kind of supports the ED's view that MUDA had problems, even if they disagree on this specific case.
Right. Now, here's a curveball. September 2024, Parvathy gives all 14 sites back, voluntarily.
Really? Just returns them.
Yeah. Wrote this apparently quite emotional letter saying, she didn't care about wealth, didn't want to hurt her husband's reputation.
Huh. How do you read that?
Well, the ED probably sees it as basically admitting guilt.
Right.
Why give them back if it was all legit?
Yeah, it does look a bit like, okay, you caught me, or at least this isn't worth the trouble.
But the Lokayukta's view would be, hey, the rules allow people to surrender sites. It doesn't automatically mean you did anything wrong. Maybe it was just, like you said, damage control. protecting the CM's image.
A strategic retreat, perhaps, rather than an admission of guilt.
Yeah.
It's ambiguous.
Very.
Yeah.
So, like we said, the Lokayukta report flagged all these other MUDA issues, too. The 1,000-plus sites, the realtor links, the bribery whispers, people getting multiple sites.
Yeah, the systemic stuff.
And that point about long-serving staff maybe creating an environment where things could go unchecked, it does raise serious questions about how MUDA was operating.
Definitely paints a picture of an organization needing much tighter controls and oversight.
Now, you absolutely cannot talk about this without mentioning the politics. It's impossible to ignore.
Siddaramaiah is a major political figure.
Huge. Current CM, veteran Congress leader. And he's basically said, look, the opposition, BJP, JDS, they're threatened by me, so they're coming after me.
Which is a common defense in these situations, isn't it? Claiming political motivation.
Absolutely. And in such a charged atmosphere, these kinds of allegations become weapons.
For sure. And then there's the fact his son, Yafindra, was actually on the MUD board when this happened.
Right. That connection hasn't been missed, you can bet. Plus, Siddaramaiah himself was leader of the opposition before becoming CM again, so he wasn't exactly powerless then either.
These details add layers, don't they? Potential conflicts of interest, questions about influence.
And we've seen the ED raiding realtors in Bengaluru and Mysuru, so they're definitely pursuing those wider connections.
Suggests they believe there's a network there to uncover.
Meanwhile, the Congress Party pushes back hard. They accuse the ED of basically being a puppet for the central government, which is run by their rivals, the BJP.
Calling it a political witch hunt.
Exactly. And the Lokayukta's initial report, clearing Parvathy and Siddaramaiah of criminal acts, kind of bolstered their argument, didn't it?
It certainly gave them ammunition. But the ED isn't letting go.
Not at all. They challenged the Lokayukta's closure report, took it to a special court in Bengaluru, the People's Representatives Court, back in April 2025.
And how did that go?
Well, initially, the court apparently pushed back a bit, questioning if the ED could even file a separate challenge like that. So that legal fight is ongoing. More twists could definitely come.
Yeah, that challenge highlights the core disagreement between the two agencies and their different legal grounds, PMLA for the ED versus the Lokayukta's broader mandate. And the court's reaction shows it's not a simple legal path forward.
So, okay, we've gone through a lot of detail here. Land deals, agencies, rules. Someone listening might think, okay, it's a Mysuru thing. Why does it matter to me?
That's fair, but I think it touches on something universal.
Yeah, like what?
Well, it's about how public resources, because land in a growing city is a public resource, really how they're managed. Is it fair?
Right. That land is super valuable, and if someone gets it through questionable means...
It means someone else, maybe someone without connections, missed out. It affects ordinary citizens. It erodes trust.
Absolutely. Trust in the system.
Yeah.
Trust that the rules apply equally to everyone. When it looks like the powerful get special treatment, it makes you cynical, doesn't it?
It really does. It undermines the whole idea of a fair society. And you have to wonder, if this kind of thing is alleged in Mysuru, what about other cities, other development authorities?
It's a wake-up call, isn't it? That laws and rules are only as good as the people enforcing them. If a system can supposedly allow over 1,000 illegal allotments, as the ED claims, that's not just a local issue.
No, it points to a need for much stronger transparency everywhere, better accountability, checks and balances that actually work.
And it shows why having independent bodies looking into this stuff is so important, even if, like here, they sometimes reach different conclusions. That itself tells you something.
It highlights the complexity and the need for clear, transparent processes for managing public assets and holding people in power accountable.
So yeah, as you can probably tell by now, it's complicated, messy, far from clear-cut. And you, listening, your interest that got us started on this deep dive, it really hits that key question. How do we make sure these powerful development authorities are transparent? How do we ensure they're fair?
It really does bring up that fundamental issue, doesn't it? The balance between development, power, and the systems needed to stop that power being abused. What safeguards are truly effective?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Say, think about this. Beyond all the legal stuff, the politics playing out in Mysuru, what does this whole saga tell us about the potential for things to go wrong inside the very systems designed to manage our resources? And maybe more importantly, what's our role as citizens in keeping an eye on things and holding power accountable, not just there, but, you know, in our own backyards? Maybe take a look at what's happening with urban development where you live. Might be more going on than you think.